Hello, and welcome to Enroll Wyoming's first podcast. We're a nonprofit that helps people find affordable health insurance. My name is Caleb Smith. I'm the marketing director for the nonprofit. Today, we're in beautiful Lander at the Purple Thistle Wellness Center. We'll be talking to Debra East and Vikkilyn Frank about the LGBTQIA Two Spirits community. Thank you for sitting down with me today, Debra. I greatly appreciate it. And I've been talking to you before the camera started to roll, but I would appreciate if you could introduce yourself and tell me and the audience a little bit about yourself.
Well, I'm happy to do that. So I've been living in Lander since 1978. I moved here when I was 24. I'm now 69. I started working with the Wyoming Outdoor Council, which is a conservation group that's been around since 1965. And I reopened the field office here. It had been closed and moved to Cheyenne, and I reopened the field office here. And I worked for Knowles for 15 years, and I was able to be the admissions manager for 12 years with wilderness medicine. And that was just the most enjoyable job I've ever had. I love that team. And I retired from there in 2021.
Debra, you've just shared a very impressive resume and list of personal achievements. At this time, I'd appreciate if you could tell me a little bit more about your journey with nonprofits and how you became connected with Wind River Pride.
Well, Caleb, one of the threads in my life has been making sure that people had good information so they could make the most informed decisions. And when I look at my history with nonprofits and I look at my work in community organizing, that holds true. So in my experience, I've worked with newspaper organizations, I've worked in community action, and I also started here in Wyoming working on environmental issues, and then I worked on women's rights, and then I worked on women's access to reproductive health care, and then I worked on LGBTQIA and Two-Spirit opportunities. And that has helped inform me all along the way about the work I'm doing now with Wind River Pride. I want to mention in this work I have people who query me about these long acronyms for LGBTQIA plus and Two-Spirit. Sometimes you'll see 2S in that grouping. And I think since we're going to be talking more about that experience of the lives that many of us live, saying a little bit more about that acronym would be helpful to people.
Yeah, please do.
Lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, intersex, and asexual are what those acronym letters mean. And sometimes you will see 2S for Two-Spirit. That's for people who are indigenous. And people who are black, indigenous, and people of color or white all use that one of those letters if they have an orientation that is not heteronormative, meaning they're relationships that might be romantic or sexual or for the person of the other sex, and all of those relationships within that, and that there's more gender identity than male or female strictly. Those have always been true. It is just over time that those of us who identify differently than cisgender or heteronormative have been able to claim some of the language of who we are. And that is an impact of all sorts of cultural changes and historical changes, colonization and things of that nature. But right now, I just like folks to remember that LGBTQIA Two-Spirit is a prompt to extend their thinking about how people may relate to each other as they go through their lives.
Well, just to help people put some things in context, because there are some groups in Wyoming that they don't have near the history that Wind River Pride does. It was a pleasure just earlier this month to be at Rock Springs Pride for only the second time they've hosted it. But since you all can draw upon some richer, deeper history, I would appreciate it if you could share some Pride memories from over the years. And we'll start early and we'll go forward.
Okay. Well, I would say, since we're starting our second decade this year, about 10 years ago, 11 years ago, we had our first Pride gathering, and it was in City Park, where we all got together and had good food and celebrated. Because it was small enough, we had the capacity to just manage it ourselves. It was like a gigantic potluck. And it was going to be with people who are LGBTQIA and Two-Spirit. Doggone it. That was going to be our thing. And elements of that are still with us. We still have Park in City Park in Lander.
Would you be able to tell me a little bit more about how Pride went this year in 2024?
Sure, I can do that. I have to say first, it was a really powerful collaboration between white, black, indigenous, and people of color. We're all working together around mutual accountability, how to hear each other, how to plan things, how to incorporate information that people from different backgrounds and experiences have when they see a site, a setting. How is it secure and safe? And secure and safe are tricky words these days, because people think that means security has to be maintained by someone other than ourselves. But actually our own wisdom around what we consider to be a safe space, how we can manage a challenging moment, is also something we as individuals can engage in. How do we learn how to de-escalate? How do we learn to respond differently to a situation that helps it not escalate? How do we make requirements of each other? And so I think we went a long way with that kind of thinking, because one of the events that happened this year was in response to last year when the Patriot Front showed up, and they placed themselves on a bridge that was a higher point and downstream from the family-friendly drag show, and they proceeded to protest. That was very intimidating for the people who were performing and the people who were attending. And we didn't want to see that happen again. So this year, within days of last year of that happening, we knew what we were going to do. And so this year, the enthusiasm of allies who were distressed about that protest and also who experienced the intimidation of that, we decided to have a bridge gathering, and people had rainbow-colored umbrellas, and they loaded the bridge. So we had 25 to 30 people, I think, who were on the bridge with umbrellas and joy, and that's who the drag performers got to see from downstream view. And then we also had vendors over on a street side who were there selling things that they were proud of or giving information, and they served, along with the folks on the bridge, as members of the perimeter of joy. And that helped everyone see that we had upped our game in terms of the care of the community. People showed up to say, this is how we're going to treat people in our town.
As part of both Pride Month and year-round, we want to recognize the importance of finding affordable health insurance and those related resources, and recognizing that there can be challenges for that, especially for the LGBTQIA Two-Spirits community. Can you talk a little bit about some of the barriers they may face when it comes to finding care?
Sure. I think one of the things that is really critical is to be invited in, to have a path to solve a challenge that's before a person. And as a member of the LGBTQIA plus Two-Spirit community, I recognize that there are times when the exclusion factor is so habituated that organizations don't even know to think about it. And what I'm excited about for being invited to this podcast, for what I've seen on the website for Enroll Wyoming, there's information there already for people who are LGBTQIA or Two-Spirit looking for a resource. It's listed there. So to me, the first step is to stop excluding. Enroll Wyoming is inviting, so that's the other part. How do you invite or include people? And so that exclusion creates challenges for people. So if one is already worried about losing housing, employment, or not having a full educational opportunity, and you lay on top of that health access and health insurance, that's a pretty heavy group of collected things for people to have to navigate, which is why I like the term navigate that's used in Enroll Wyoming, because there really is a lot of navigation that people need to do. And so if people who are of different races, different heritages, different sexual orientation or gender identities are looking for help with insurance, there's a lot for them to do. So that's the first barrier, right? And then for all of us, learning to be advocates for ourselves is very challenging. If you're the one knowing yourself best, you're the one who can get the help that you need most efficiently. So having a partner in that is really important. Whether it's a group of navigators or the navigator in your own community from Enroll Wyoming. As I was looking into what Enroll Wyoming does, I was really excited to see that, oh, there's a navigator here in my town or in my community. And so having some form of access is another thing. And then you can have companionship in the journey when you're trying to advocate for yourself. Get the insurance that helps you take the best health care of yourself for the situations facing you at the moment. And just being able to get the foot in the door is the biggest, I think, one of the biggest challenges.
You talked a little bit about navigation, and one of the things when it comes to Enroll Wyoming is that we call our frontline workers navigators. I understand that you were recently introduced to the local navigator, Molly Holtz. Mm-hmm. She's an awesome woman. Mm-hmm. I would like to ask you a little bit more about what are the advantages of having a skilled guide to take you through the process.
The area that Molly covers, I think, is Fremont County and Teton County. That's a fur piece. You know, Fremont County, including the Wind River Reservation, is larger than the state of Massachusetts.
True.
And she's clearly an experienced person in this region. She knows a lot of people and worked with folks who reside on the Wind River Reservation, who reside on Fremont County, who reside in Teton County. So when she knows her area and the people in it, that's so vital, and I'm sure that's true of the other navigators. That's another way, as I said before, of getting rid of the exclusion, because the person-to-person connection makes it really hard to maintain exclusion. You have to be able to listen to each other and get what's needed by the person seeking a form of health care, insurance, and what can they get for the funds that they have that gives them a leg up on some concern. So I think having a person who knows that and builds those relationships is vital, and that allows one person's positive experience getting that insurance to go to another member of the community and expand in that way that people can rely on. So I think having a navigator who knows your name, who knows what you're up against, gives a person some empowerment that they didn't have, that ripples out in other aspects of their life, so they can even be a better advocate than they've been previously for themselves.
Well, we're always glad to come together to problem solve together and hopefully celebrate together when we get to the end of things. I would like to know if you would have some advice for people who are uninsured or maybe just having some difficulty with health insurance right now.
Well, first I just want to say, I don't think you're alone. This is a big challenge, and you know a lot about yourself. You know what you need. Be bold as your own advocate from your own place, from your own heart, from your own mind. Be willing to feel like you're stepping out of your comfort zone a little bit, to ask for information, to ask for insight, to ask for an address, the name of somebody. I'm saying it specifically like that instead of saying ask for help.
When it comes to Enroll Wyoming, we're always trying to empower people with information, with guidance when they need it, with support. If you want to get a hold of us, it's just as easy as going to enrollwyo.org or calling 211. And
I saw both of those on your webpage, and it was exciting to me to see that there. I think also folks who are LGBTQIA or Two-Spirit, when they go to the webpage, there is an icon there that hooks them up with Wyoming Equality, which has done a lot of outreach work. So I think that's a way to say, oh, these are my people. This is already happening. Call 211 because you're going to meet the local navigator through that, and then you'll have your first step as well when you're really feeling the pressure and really feeling at a loss as to what your next step could be.
Okay. I could just keep listening to your stories for a while, but just as we wrap it up, is there anything that you would like to add or you'd like to emphasize as part of our conversation today?
I'd like to add to people who are heteronormative in their relationships, cisgender male or cisgender female, that you too have a letter. You are C for cisgender and H for heteronormative. So when you hear that long acronym of LGBTQIA plus and 2S, you can add in there C and H, because we could include that too, because that's all of us, and you're part of that. Let's do this together and not be separate and not be judgmental, but be thoughtful about how we all relate to each other.
Doing things together is how we get the most good work done.
That's right.
Vikkilyn, thank you for letting us spend some time in your business today. The camera angles don't show it, but you have a lovely storefront.
Thank you.
But for those of us who aren't joining us in the room, would you right now please introduce yourself? Please tell me a little bit about what you do.
My name is Vikkilyn Frank, and I am the owner and sole proprietor, sole employee of Purple Thistle Wellness. I'm a holistic healer. I focus on chakra clearing and balancing, crystal healing, tarot card reading, wellness coaching, and I create natural apothecary.
When it comes to some of your volunteer work, how did you get connected with both PFLAG and Wind River Pride?
I actually got connected with Wind River Pride through some of my connections in Lantern Performing Arts. Most of my life, the majority of my friends have been members of the LGBTQIA+ community since I was a kid. And I have family members that are part of the community, and it just made sense to be a part of that as well. And I wanted to help with activities. And I've always been about live and let live.
Okay.
That's kind of my motto in life. And I believe in inclusion, and I believe in treating all people with kindness and accepting all people as they are. And so that, to me, makes me work in more humanitarian kind of ways, with groups that are maybe marginalized and have some issues where people don't accept and don't tolerate. And I'm not about that. I want everybody included. And we're all a beautiful, diverse humanity. And I really believe that. And I want to support everybody in being included and accepted.
I'd like to talk a little bit about business because that's an important part of your resume, part of your identity right now. You're active in so much. Can you tell me about how you got to open Purple Thistle?
Okay, again, I have to backtrack a little bit. My background, my degree is in theater and dance. And I've been a dance teacher and at the college level, everything kindergarten through the college level, mostly modern dance. That's kind of my place that I love and I love. And then through my own addiction and recovery, I got involved in working in the addictions field, in the substance abuse field. And I worked with a program called Kick It, which was Keep It Clean Kids Intervention and Treatment, which then kind of morphed into our juvenile treatment court here in Fremont County. And I worked with them until 2020. And right at the beginning of the pandemic, when we started to wear masks, I transferred out to White Buffalo Recovery, which is under Wind River Cares and is the tribal treatment program for the Northern Arapaho tribe. And I worked there throughout the pandemic. The pandemic was very, very difficult, and it was very, 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 even more difficult for our tribal members. We lost so many to the pandemic, and it was very hard to give proper treatment during that time. And I kept getting signs that it was time for me to move on to this healing that I've always wanted to do. And I've always had a gift for that. And I just kept getting signs from the universe, if you will, that it was time to make that leap of faith and to start my own business and to, I'd been doing my natural apothecary craft shows for several years by this point, and I hadn't been able to really do my services that require you to lay on the massage table and, lay crystals around you, et cetera. And so I just knew that the time was now. And we were just coming out of the pandemic, literally stopped wearing masks at my job 2 weeks prior to me leaving there. And I opened on the summer solstice last year.
When it comes to being an entrepreneur, what are some of the challenges that you've faced?
Finding the right space, making sure you have the finances to get things off the ground and to survive the first years, because it's tough. Building your clientele, building your customer base is tough when and then looking at your audience community. Like if I had put this business in another town, may not have done as well as being here in Lander, where a lot more people are into the holistic practices that I, utilize.
Do entrepreneurs also have to worry about healthcare coverage, especially when you're a one person in
Absolutely. I have type 2 diabetes. I've always been used to having insurance through my employers and pretty decent coverage. So it was super important for me to have health insurance because my medications that I have to take for type 2 diabetes are very pricey. And that would totally cut me out of the business world if I didn't have insurance. So I knew that was priority for me to make sure that I had insurance. And getting it on my own was worrisome because I do have a pre-existing condition.
And where were you able to find the health plan that you're enjoying right now?
I ended up getting insurance through the marketplace, the healthcare marketplace.
The health insurance marketplace is something that's created on the national level so that people can be able to more easily access and afford health insurance. It's one of the main things that Enroll Wyoming is helping people connect with, whether that's just bringing it to their attention or helping them with their applications, or in some cases identifying the tax credits and options that come with that. When you were sitting down, did you do that by yourself or did you have some assistance?
I started doing it by myself, and then I remembered seeing a billboard for the insurance that I ended up with. And so I kind of went more onto the state level versus the national level, because I was getting phone call after phone call after phone call, and some of it was months after it I had already gotten my insurance. So the national level, I think bringing it down to a more local, bite-sized options for me was better.
If you had the chance to go back in time, would you like to have a navigator work with you through that?
Yes.
What would be some
Absolutely.
of the advantages of that?
Someone who knows the different plans and costs, and it's timely, so people aren't calling you months after you've already made a decision, so it's very timely. Someone that knows, the different plans that are available and what would work, and that can know me and would work with me to figure out my needs and find a plan that meets my needs without me trying to navigate hundreds and hundreds of things.
Since you have a plan through the health insurance marketplace, can you talk about some of the advantages that you yourself are enjoying right now?
My plan pays for all of my medications 100%, all of them. I did have to change my insulin. I still take the same dose, just a different brand.
All right.
Everything works fine. And again, I don't pay for any of my medications. I pay $25 copay to go see the doctor, $35 for a specialist. Knock on wood, yes. I haven't had to go to the hospital or anything since I've gotten my insurance. The cost is reasonable. I would pay so much more just for my medication than I do for the plan.
I don't know if you're aware, one of the standards when it comes to being included in the health insurance marketplace is that they must provide a certain level of standard, certain essentials. So when it comes to covering prescriptions, making sure that certain specialists, mental health and other things, those are all part of that's the bare minimum that they must have. It's one of those, you must be at least this tall to be included in the marketplace. And some of the plans can actually provide even additional care from that, depending on what needs you have, maybe what else you're willing to spend.
My plan also reimburses for dental care and vision care. Being a diabetic, your vision care can actually be covered as a medical exam because you have to have your eyes checked on an annual basis. But having that reimbursement for your dental exams and not having to get additional dental insurance, so there's options for that as well, is nice. Because my teeth are generally healthy. They just need cleaning.
And the plan covers care that you're receiving locally?
Yes. My doctors are all in the network. In fact, there's a lot of doctors in network in Wyoming that I'm super pleased about, that I'm not worried, if I go to my eye doctor, they're not going to be in the network. Or if I go see a dermatologist, they're not going to be in the network. And because we don't have a local dermatologist. So we do have to go to another town, and thankfully those dermatologists are included in the plan that I have.
That's an important thing to double check. I'm glad that they work out for you. And that's one of the services that Enroll Wyoming provides, is that I've often gone down with a list with sitting down with someone going, here are your doctors, here are your prescriptions, or here are some of the procedures you're anticipating in the coming year. Let's see what each one of these plans covers. It can give people a lot of peace of mind or comfort that they wouldn't have been able to find just on themselves. What advice would you have for maybe a small business starting out who they have this passion, but they're a little bit worried about covering basics like health insurance? What advice would you give to them?
I would tell them to call Enroll Wyoming or get on the website and look things up. They're really cost-effective plans, and it's so important to have the insurance because you just never know when you're going to need it, and you should have it. It's like auto insurance. You better have it before you have a problem. So I just think it's so important, especially when we're running our own business, because if we're not here to run our business because of a health problem, no one's going to run it. So it's super important that we have that. We're proactive enough to make sure that we have coverage so we can maintain our health, so we can maintain our business.
And when your health is taking care of other people's health, it has that domino effect where you taking care of yourself is a net positive for the whole community.
Yes, I agree. I mean, I can't be active in the community and doing supportive things and, being more of a volunteer, which was also part of my reason for going into business for myself. If I'm not healthy, if I'm having to take time off, from commitments I've made, even volunteering, that does make me feel good because I've committed. And so it's important for me to maintain my health to do that.
All right. Well, we've talked a lot, and like I said, I appreciate the time you've given us to set up in your lovely shop. The camera angles don't fully capture it, but I appreciate your character and the care that I can just see just off camera shot. Is there anything that you would like to either add or emphasize in our discussion that we've been having today?
I would just encourage everyone to take care of yourselves. Self-care is super important, and that includes your health, your emotional health, your mental health, your spiritual health. It's a holistic approach, and you want to keep your whole person healthy. And not having to worry about health insurance is a big part of that because it decreases your stress, and you just know that you've got that coverage when something happens. What I love about Molly as our person here is, I've known her ever since I moved to Lander. I've known her. We've worked peripherally with each other in different groups. We've even taught parenting class together in the past, and I love her as a person, and I love her knowledge of the reservation and the Lander community. And she does know, and the people and the providers, and she can really, I feel I can trust her to give me good advice. When I talk to her, I always get some juicy wisdom from Molly. And so I just, having someone that I know I can trust to navigate all this with me, because this is not my forte. Insurance and the numbers and all that, that's not my forte. My forte is healing. And so to have someone like Molly who can navigate all of those things for me and that I know I can trust, that helps a lot.